I never meant to cause them so much pain. I know it's because of me that will always be the last picture that she'll ever take with Travis. Additionally, I've designed a t-shirt. This is the t-shirt, of which 100% of the proceeds go to support nonprofit organizations which also assist other victims.
This video shows that you can't always trust someone's tears and emotional stories. In her statement to the jury, Jodi shifts between being sad and yet entirely in control of this sadness. She's performing, looking at each of the jury members in order to persuade them emotionally. Let's see how Jodi's highly strategic address to the jury plays out. Right from the beginning, Jodi brings attention to her mother. This lets the jury know that she has a family, that she's human, so to speak. She details this family aspect later on. She also expresses guilt. However, as I'll show, she doesn't take ownership of this guilt, which suggests that it isn't real.
While the first phase of this trial was ongoing, my mom visited me just like she'd been doing every week since trial began. She told me that after leaving the courthouse, she was idling at a stoplight and she happened to look over at the car next to her. And Travis's siblings were in that car. My mom and I were silent for a few moments when she finally voiced exactly what I was thinking. She said, "I know they're going through hell." Yet nothing drove that point home for me more than when I heard them speak last week. I never meant to cause them so much pain.
Jodi's voice is trembling, but there are no tears. Instead, she looks carefully at the jury, most likely to see if they're buying it.
When Stephen said he read on Travis's 3x5 card that it said "call Stephen," and that he never got that call, I know that's because of me. And when Samantha showed us the last picture that she took with Travis, I know it's because of me that will always be the last picture that she'll ever take with Travis. Throughout this trial, I've avoided looking at Travis's family for a variety of reasons that I won't go into. But I've wondered, where is his grandma? Is she here?
It's interesting that she won't look at Travis's family for, quote, a variety of reasons that I won't go into. This evasion of responsibility negates the quote-unquote self-blame in her preceding statements and makes this blame sound contrived. Obviously, Jodi's pride and attempt to convince the jury mean more to her than dwelling on what she did.
I didn't learn until last week what happened to her. Samantha said that Travis was the glue to their family. Around Thanksgiving not last year, in 2007, Travis called me. He was really upset. He said his grandmother was ill and frail, and that he didn't know if she was going to make it. He said he didn't know what his family would do if she didn't make it, because she was the glue to their family. To know now that both are gone, and that I may have also inadvertently induced her passing, destroys me.
On a word level, this sounds like Jodi realizing the scope of her actions. However, once again, this is negated by her following self-focus, where she makes sure to emphasize her struggles and her family. Clearly, she wants them to be her focus, not Travis.
There's one element that has almost always caused me to waver. They're sitting right over there. They're my family. At times, I've lost track of that element. For example, the incident I testified to when I took my razor apart at the Siskiyou County Jail. I managed to convince myself that they would get over the pain with time, and that in the long run, I was doing them a favor by unburdening them of my presence in their lives. I wrote a bunch of them goodbye letters, addressed specifically to each person. And in the letters, I didn't focus so much on explanations, but on how much and why I loved each of them.
She makes sure to direct the jury's attention to her family by pointing, "This is Deixis." In theory, Deixis makes the audience more likely to align themselves with the subjects involved. By saying unburdening them of my presence, Jodi also makes sure to sound self-effacing, which in theory takes the attention off her highly selfish crime.
And in the letters, I didn't focus so much on explanations, but on how much and why I loved each of them.
For Jodi, this is about letting the jury know that she's capable of loving someone. Unfortunately for Jodi, however, the jury doesn't have to imagine what her kind of love leads to. It's evident. Nevertheless, Jodi goes on to show her grandiose sense of self-importance and entitlement. What we're about to see is rather incredible.
I didn't know that if I got life, there are many things I can do to affect positive change and contribute in a meaningful way. In prison, there are programs I can start and people I can help, and programs that I can continue to participate in. I'll share a few examples that I've thought of. A few months before trial, and by that I mean jury selection, my hair was past my waist, and I donated it to Locks of Love, the nonprofit. In fact, that was my third donation to that organization since I was arrested. If I'm allowed to live in prison, I will continue to donate to that organization for the rest of my life.
Fortunately for us all, there's a lot more she'll do, and she's not shy about telling us.
Over the years I've spent in incarceration, I've received many requests from women to teach them Spanish or American Sign Language. Because my case was pending, I just didn't have the time. In prison, I will. If I'm sentenced to life, I will live among the general population of women, and I'll be able to share my knowledge of those subjects with them, the ones who have the desire to learn also. I may even be able to start classes.
The perspective is noteworthy. It's Jodi donating, Jodi teaching, and other people receiving and learning. There's no reciprocity. This level of navel-gazing is so deeply ingrained in Jodi's narcissistic personality that she seems unaware of how she really comes across to people, unlike her carefully thought-out intentions. Also, I think this is a wake-up call on a larger scale. When politicians, people online, or people we talk to in person are busy mentioning all of their good deeds, they do it to overcompensate. They overcompensate because they really want something from us. In Jodi's case, it's to convince the jury to give her a milder sentence. For a politician, it's to get our vote. For a blogger, it's to get a large following. And in the case of a person we know, it's to get our sympathy and oftentimes help. Singing one's own praises in this way is a huge red flag, no matter who's doing it. I'll get back to Jodi in a moment. First, let me list all the good things I've done. What? We don't have time? No, it's okay, I guess.
If I get permission, I'd like to implement a recycling program. The women's prison in Goodyear houses thousands of women, and each week, huge loads of waste are hauled off to a landfill. A substantial portion of that could be kept out of landfill and recycled instead. It may even create new jobs for the people there. This is one small thing that could have a far-reaching and positive impact on the community and on the planet.
It's interesting how Jodi knows all the right buzzwords and makes sure to repeat them in order to ingrain them in the jury members. And yet she repeats them without any feeling or enthusiasm. Clearly, this is something she has to say to make sure that people perceive her the way she wants them to. This pattern continues. Next, Jodi adds speech therapist to her resume.
There's a higher rate of illiteracy in prison than in everyday society. I know that reading has enriched my life by expanding my knowledge base and opening my eyes to new worlds and different cultures. I can help other women become literate so that they too can add that dimension to their lives. Along the lines of literacy, I'd like to start a book club or a reading group, something that brings people together in a positive and constructive way so that we can share and recommend other good books and stimulate discussions of a higher nature.
Jodi's unemotional use of the right words and expressions obviously says something about her, first and foremost, but it also speaks volumes about the buzzwords that celebrities, politicians, and other leaders use to no end. That's why we should always be critical of the definitions people attach to words, because these definitions reveal their true motives and objectives. This is one of the main functions of rhetoric, to deconstruct virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is a sign of herd mentality, almost in a primitive sense. The virtue signaler wants to show that they're in good standing with the majority or the common norm, and they want to achieve acceptance from the majority or the group they affiliate with or pretend to affiliate with. Jodi's references to her many skills and titles remind me of someone who's just as unaware of how he comes across. Chris Watts, Rain Man as his colleagues used to call him, probably unironically. In one of his letters to his mother, Chris writes that he's still a dad, still a son, no matter what, and that he can now add servant of God to that mix, that God has allegedly shown him peace, love, and forgiveness. Considering the agenda behind virtue signaling, it's very likely that he mentions forgiveness, because that's what he hopes to achieve from other people, maybe the people closest to him. And if God can show him forgiveness, it's possible for other people to learn to forgive as well. At least, that's the implication. Like Jodi makes life in prison sound like it will be a humanitarian effort on her part, Chris also made his move to a federal prison sound beneficial to other people, that God moved him there for a reason, and that hopefully he can help people that way. As with the words peace, love, and forgiveness, he doesn't say anything specific. These are empty words that sound good. Like Jodi uses illiteracy, recycling, and who knows what else as shields against accountability, Chris uses his version of deity as a shield against accountability. He says that it's just a matter of what God's opinion of him is, not anybody else's. Besides deception, saying that he doesn't care about people's opinions is a coping mechanism. He has to say it. Both Chris and Jodi thought they could get away with lying to investigators, lying to journalists, and now think they can get away with claiming to be God's servant or wanting to save the planet. They have to say that they don't care what other people think when time and time again, some people see straight through them. Unfortunately though, a lot of narcissists and sociopaths are hugely successful, and many people believe their humble demeanor and pretty speeches. Next, Jodi has a t-shirt she wants to sell.
Additionally, I've designed a t-shirt. This is the t-shirt, of which 100% of the proceeds go to support nonprofit organizations which also assist other victims. Some people may not believe that I am a survivor. They're entitled to their opinion. I'm supporting this cause because it's very, very important to me.
And there we have it. She says that people are entitled to their opinion, showing awareness of the fact that how she wants to be perceived misaligns with how she's actually perceived. Just like Chris said that he didn't care about people's opinions. Also, even mentioning this shows that she's bothered by the fact that people don't believe her, even though she downplays the disbelief with the word some people. Some is very different from alternatives like many and obviously most. Next, Jodi details the family aspect that she brought up in the beginning. The Pathos appeal is now on full display. Notice how quickly she goes from a trembling voice to her voice sounding calm and normal. This is a sign that it's not the memories that make her cry, but that she's acting. She's not on the verge of losing control of her emotions. She's pretending to be.
These are only a handful of examples. I've never been to prison. I don't know from personal experience what it's like there. But I'm certain that after I arrive, I'll likely find many other ways in which I can contribute to the women there. I'd like to share with you now a few things about me and a few things about my family. I was so excited to have a baby sister. I watched my mom's stomach grow. I watched Angela come into this world. And after the doctor swaddled her, he turned to me instead of my mom and said, "Do you want to hold her first?" These are various school pictures. In 9th grade, my family and I moved back to Wairika, but I still went back to Santa Maria periodically to visit friends. This is Patty. She was my best friend for years.
Jody's trying to take advantage of the fact that people at large respond more to emotions than logic. Emotional appeals are more common in court cases where the accused has no other defense. The main function of all narratives is to present the protagonist as normal, because if the audience considers the protagonist to be normal, they're able to relate to her. Being able to relate to someone creates identification, and identification increases the likelihood of being believed, what is called narrative believability. Jodi uses all the right strategies, but strategies mean nothing without sincerity. This is a lesson that narcissists will never learn. They can't. I'm beginning to see the 40,000 subscribers mark, which is incredible. Running a YouTube channel is a shared effort, so thank you all for your engagement on this channel. Now can I say the good things I've done? Okay. I've